Welcome to the LinkedIn Collective Studio, broadcasting live from the Cannes Lion International Festival of Creativity. I am Vita Cornelius, the Senior Vice President of Creative and Strategy for New York Times Advertising, and the head of T-Brand, the content studio of New York Times Advertising. I'm joined here today by two leading marketing minds, Tushar Barak, Senior Director of Marketing at LinkedIn, and Nick Mercurio, Chief Growth Officer at Ipsos, a global leader in market research. Welcome both.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Our conversation today will unpack the rich insights, trends, and themes found in LinkedIn's newly launched here at Cannes B2B Marketing Benchmark Report. Conducted in collaboration with marketing research giant Ipsos, this year's report theme, B2B Marketing Organization of the Future, focuses specifically on the practices, skills, and methodologies driving future-looking B2B marketing organizations. So for the next 30 minutes, we're going to mine for answers to a few burning questions. Primarily, what does the future look like for B2B brands? What investments will be made? What role will creativity play in B2B business growth? And how will AI inform the roadmap and future of B2B success? Okay, so as a Chief Growth Officer, Nick, I'd like to start with you. The theme of the report was the B2B Marketing Organization of the Future. When you hear that phrase, it brings to light the need for organizational readiness for the challenges and potential opportunities of tomorrow. So to this vein, what were the key standout findings for you?
Yeah, well, first, it's great to be here, Vita. Thank you. And I think the data from the report was pretty clear that the marketing organizations of the future for B2B need to be a triple threat, to use a basketball analogy. They need to be able to pass, dribble, and shoot. And specifically what the report found was that, yes, you need to be creative, and increasingly so in the world today, but you also need to be fluent in the latest technologies, no surprise with a lot of the advancements in AI, but also really adept strategists who have strong business acumen, understand their customers, their pain points, et cetera, which in some ways is new for many B2B organizations who have typically not focused on long-term brand building and creative campaigns. They were a little bit more short-term MarTech focused, which again also makes sense given many B2B companies followed either a sales-led growth strategy like your Salesforce, Oracle, IBMs of the world who relied on a really sophisticated sales motion, enterprise sales motion, or product-led growth companies like Slack, Calendly, HubSpot, who focus a little bit more on user adoption and not so much on brand building and marketing. And again, when you're entering a market, you have a differentiated product, it's more likely to be adopted. But as it becomes more mature, more complex, there's less differentiation, maybe more competitive threats, we tend to see B2B organizations following the trend that has existed in B2C for a long time, which is focusing a little bit more on brand building, top of funnel, creative awareness, et cetera. But I think as the report showed, you can't focus on creativity alone. You need to have the triple threat, which is also a focus on technology and strategy.
Yeah, I love that basketball analogy of like the triple threat. It's really important to be able to do all those things to kind of move forward.
And I'm not going to ignore the fact that I played basketball.
Oh yes.
When I was young, I wasn't very good.
What position
I sat on the bench. The coach was my dad was the coach.
There you go. Yeah.
My dad was a coach, so there it is. But in the vein of triple threat, I mean, I think marketing leaders need to be obviously confident to achieve that. So Tushar, I'm going to ask you. As a marketing leader yourself, like where are you seeing this confidence show up? Are the teams and the leaders getting more confident?
Yeah, confidence in B2B marketing is definitely growing from what we've seen in the report. There's just this want and ability to make sure that we can find ways to be creative, to stand out, create mental availability and brand awareness and brand building. But just to go back a second and contextualize it, about 2 years ago, our CEO at LinkedIn, Ryan Roslansky, was actually here at Cannes, and he went on stage and talked about the opportunity that is B2B. The biggest companies in the world, whether we realize it or not, are actually all B2B companies. The largest market caps are all B2B companies. And the brands aren't known necessarily. And so there's an important factor that we have to think about of how do we build brands? When we think about the purchase cycle of a B2B good or service, only 5% of your market's actually in market right now. So you got to make sure that you're staying top of mind for what's going on. And what we've seen in the report is, from a confidence perspective, I think 78% of the people who responded, B2B marketers, felt that there was more confidence in what they were doing and how they were creating brand building efforts. We saw a 13% increase year over year in confidence from last year. And almost 9 in 10 folks that answered the surveys talked about this ability they felt within the next year to be able to tie their work to actual revenue growth. And so being able to do all that is really important. And so fundamentally what we saw was this idea of a couple things. One, it's this we're seeing increase in budgets that are coming out. We're seeing too that there's teams being upskilled, and so these two things put together really provide that confidence I think B2B marketers have been wanting to do and be able to get out there. Yeah.
And I mean, how do you feel that creativity is obviously going to be, up leveled as a result of that?
Yeah, exactly. So and the idea of creativity being the key that keeps people top of mind and keeps brands top of mind is super important.
Yeah. Now we're here at Cannes, obviously, which is like the Super Bowl of all things
the
creative.
Mecca of,
the
creativity.
Mecca, right?
Yeah.
This is where the industry puts the gold star on all the best work, right? Where it's awarded and celebrated. But B2B brands are often kind of criticized for being, lagging behind their B2C counterparts when it comes to, creative investment and innovation. But as you mentioned, marketers are taking notice. They're upping their creative game. So Nick, I'm going to ask you, given the data, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you feel as though creativity is a growth driver? Is it literally going to be enough or not?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be provocative by saying creativity is not important at the
right.
You have to be provocative.
Shame
here.
on
The whole
you.
idea is to be provocative here.
This was not clickbait, right?
Right.
Because the data does show that investing in creative is a breakout strategy for B2B marketers. 88%, 9 in 10 of CMOs basically said they are investing in and advocating for bigger, bolder, more creative campaigns. But at the same time, what we find in our work is that it's not being creative just for creative's sake. The really effective campaigns are ones that, yes, are a bit more tied into the sort of emotional, brand building elements, but that also are tied to, distinct customer pain points, unmet needs, tensions. So a few examples. One that from the B2B space that maybe wasn't as effective as it could have been came from Workday, who, back in 2023 launched it was a really popular Super Bowl ad. It was a rock star campaign where they had Gwen Stefani, Billy Idol, and
Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy Osbourne
can't
was
forget
the
him.
third, right? He finished it.
Yeah, he did.
And again, we found, to your point, it was really effective in building top of funnel awareness.
Yeah.
But because it was creative, it didn't necessarily speak to some of the pain points that HR and finance professionals have. It wasn't as effective as generating lower funnel purchase and intent. A brand that's doing a really effective job of this is Intuit MailChimp. I mean, they are customer and data focused. They tend to do a lot of research understanding their target audiences. And for their latest campaign, which was titled The Clustemer, they sort of really brought in both, this creative aspect where they had a really visual, stimulating campaign of, customers all balled together like dirty laundry. But at the same time, they hit on the pain points that their customers were having, B2B marketers, which was, targeting with unique messages to specific audiences, and tied how their brand can help solve that. So, in this case, we think of creativity a little bit like nitroglycerin, where if you use it in the right dosage and combine it with the right ingredients, it can be really, really powerful. And if not, you can kind of be less effective and blow things up and make a little bit of a mess.
Right.
I think it's important to find that balance of both being that super creative idea and using the right, but tying it back to some sort of business need outcome. And I love that cluster. It's great. It's a great term.
Although we creatives do like the blow-ish up kind of brief, that's a good brief sometimes, But I will say, it is important that, knowing your consumer, knowing an insight or having attention to step off of, as a creative is really important, and it definitely does lead to breakthrough creative. Yes. So Tusar, are you thinking that we're adequately tapping into the potential of B2B when it comes to these creative opportunities? I mean, what sort of trends are we seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to. I think we've made a lot of progress. About 3 years ago, we were lucky enough to work together with the Cannes Lion team to build out the Creative B2B Award, and so it's a start in that. And we've seen progress, a bunch of stuff progress over that time. And the first year, the first winner was actually a B2C company that happened to do some B2B work, and I think that was likely so because they had those creative roots in what they're doing. Sherwin-Williams that won the first year.
Right.
But over time, over the years, we've seen more and more work come in. I think we've seen double the amount of creative work that's been entered and things like that. And so we're seeing a lot that's happening within the space. And I think that where we're really finding is a lot of different ways that creativity is coming out. So anecdotally, we've seen some B2B Super Bowl ads, right? We've also seen this idea of trying to find ways to stay top of funnel, but to your point, tie it back into business. And so we are learning and we are progressing in that way, but I think there's more to be done that will happen over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And are you thinking anything, Nick, about that?
Well, yeah, you made me think of a brand who's doing this really well, which is Salesforce.
100%.
Who is doing B2B marketing in general really effectively, but leveraging some of the new new things that we're seeing around, creators and big personalities, or leveraging connected TV. Their latest ad, which by the way was served to me because I'm one of their target customers on YouTube TV, leveraged Matthew McConaughey, who was in their previous Super Bowl ad in 2022. In this, the theme was the Great Data Heist, and they were talking about adoption of AI and how their CRM platform is focused on data management, privacy, security. Which, by the way, in the report, 34% of CMOs cited data management and privacy as the biggest barrier to adopting AI. So they understood their customer, they understood this tension, and then they created a really, creative, cinematic, suspenseful ad that was served on, a connected TV platform, which you wouldn't typically have seen that in the past from a B2B company. So they're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think this was a great example. And that goes exactly to your point before of they figured out a way to be both entertaining, use celebrities, use a bunch of things, but still be top of funnel, but also tied into the needs that the data showed them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a creative challenge, for sure, to make sure you're delivering something that not only talks about the business, the service of the business, and uses the data that they have and the insights about their consumer, but is entertaining as well, and gets talk value.
Yeah, and it goes to something we talked about before, which is the brief, right? How do you think about the brief? It's super important. Think about the data insights. It's really important because, as a B2B marketer myself, your instant reaction is going to be how am I driving that functionality and thinking about that product piece. But making sure you think about a robust brief, that's what helps as a creative yourself, I'm sure that helps you, right? You need a solid brief to be able to think about all the different ways you can do it.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a reason why a number of the B2B ads that I can think of are typically podcast reads or NPR reads or their digital ad. They focus a little bit more on the functional, a little bit less on the emotional. But the brands that are doing it right are combining those two.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to just be the big Super Bowl moments. Just really the brand building overall.
100%.
Understanding that.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about organizational readiness. We've talked about confidence as a defining trait of B2B leaders. We've talked about budgets rising and the investments being made in leveling up the role of creativity. And these are all things that we know that B2B marketers are sure about. But let's talk about something a report told us that B2B marketers are excited about and ready to adopt, but maybe a little less, a little fearful of, and that's AI, right? So that we need a sound effect, right?
Exactly. You can't be in this time period and not talk about AI. We have to talk about AI.
We need 27 mentions in this moving forward.
So Nick, I'm going to ask you, how should B2B marketers approach the challenges and opportunities that are going hand in hand with the adoption of AI?
Yeah, there are real challenges and real opportunities, and I was thinking about this in advance, and I had the good fortune of sitting in a small group session with Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, about a year ago, and one of the questions he was asked was, which I think illustrates both the challenges and the opportunities, was what surprised him most about the advent of LLMs and OpenAI's ChatGPT. And his comment struck me. He said, in the beginning of this, their underlying hypothesis is that it would disrupt physical labor first, then knowledge workers, and then creatives. And it's actually been the exact opposite. He also said that developments and advancements in the model would not be linear but exponential. We hadn't seen anything yet. And I think with their latest launch of GPT 4.0, Apple and how they're incorporating sort of the multimodal capabilities into their into the iPhone with the announcement at the Worldwide Developer Conference, talks about how it's really evolving quickly for consumers, but also on the B2B side, we know there's a lot of concern that AI is going to take the jobs of creatives. And I think our message is, look, your job will not be replaced by AI, but it may be replaced by a creative director who is more proficient in using AI as a tool than you are. And when we look across the market and see what a variety of B2B companies are doing today, to your point, there is uncertainty. In the report, it was 1 in 4, so 25% of CMOs cited that they felt extremely confident in their team's usage of AI tools today, so there's a big gap. But the companies that are starting, so Cintas, which is a business services company, they deliver uniforms and cleaning supplies. They're leveraging AI in a very low-touch way with their frontline marketing and sales teams in a way that is sort of more curation and knowledge management, so they can find the right materials for the right customer at the right time. A topic that I think many people here at Cannes are talking about is hyper-personalization and how AI is allowing us, because in B2B marketing, targeting has really been the ability to cookie people, build profiles, segment them, tie that back to intent and demand signals both on your site and elsewhere, and then serve them an ad has always been great. But now we can serve them a targeted, hyper-personalized ad at scale. I remember this was 4 months ago. I got an ad on my Instagram feed that were sunglasses that were titled Nick, and I would have never looked at the sunglasses until it was really targeted at me. So that's a second case, and then the third is really leveraging AI. In early stage curation of ideas, concept testing. So I talked about the Intuit MailChimp example earlier, which was in the top 5% of all of the ads that we've ever tested at Ipsos, which speaks to how effective it was. Michelle Tate, who's the CMO, also went on record by saying this was the first ad that Intuit MailChimp has actually used AI to help generate in terms of, one, building the visual identity of the customer. They used the AI image generator for the early iterations. They also used it to write some of the copy and then test that back with consumers. Her point, though, was that it's both the artificial intelligence combined with the human intelligence together and the creativity. When you think about creatives being very descriptive in nature, they are going to make some of the greatest prompt engineers, which is also a very important input to get a good output into AI. So I think it's the blend of those two that presents both the challenge and the opportunity.
Yeah, it's another tool, right? To think about how to use it and how to get you, and we always have new tools that come about, and so how to use them in a way. I think there's right outside, there's a big sign that says AI is not creativity, you are creativity, but AI helps in a number of ways to start the conversation.
I'll be an easy target because if the ad just says, Vita, you want this, I probably would.
Yeah, I want this. Yeah, you know me better than I know myself, right?
Right. Exactly. So Tusar, LinkedIn, here at LinkedIn, how are you and your team actually adopting AI and integrating it?
From a marketing perspective?
Yeah. What advice would you give to any business on that journey?
I think it's a start. So what I'd start is start small. Think about how you can use it as AI in a job is a number of tasks, and what are the tasks that it can help you with, right? AI can help you in some of those tasks, and it's not going to create the end-all be-all 30-second spot you need. What it's going to do is it's going to help you start to think about the prompt when you're writing the brief or when you're writing out the key elements you want to think about. Those are the things to look at, to do. And so with my team, what we talk about is don't think about being 2034, 2044. It's 2024. Let's think about now. What are the things we can do to start small to help us be as thought starters, if you will, and get those things out of the way, because sometimes you just need that switch to go off for you, and that's what that's supposed to help you do. But you're still the creative person that needs to think about what can I actually make from this, but it's giving me ideas.
Right, exactly. So it's just little bits at a time, right?
Little bits at a time, exactly.
It's how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? That's the saying. Yeah. So I think we can all agree, human skills are obviously going to, continue to be paramount in the business success, right? So that's innovative thinking, it's agility, it's adaptability, right? Totally. Problem solving. Those were all high-ranking proficiencies, as we saw in the report, right? So basically, AI bots aren't coming for our jobs. We should feel good about that.
It's not a Wall-E world yet.
Right. They're not taking over just yet, right? Yeah. So we know the report was rich with data, and that's really valuable for us, and really for marketers to be able to build that roadmap to success we've been talking about. So I just kind of want to, give us a moment of truth here. I'm going to ask you each this question. The B2B marketing team of tomorrow will need a diverse set of traits and skills to be successful, as outlined in the report. And I know there were 9 essential characteristics that were mentioned in the report. So I'm going to ask each of you, what do you think are your personal top 2 or top 3?
Pick your favorite child.
Pick your favorite child.
That's tough. I've already given my answer away a little bit when I talked about the triple threat, and it's hard to pick just one, but they've got to be creative vanguards. They've got to be technology trailblazers. The B2B marketing organizations of the future also have to be really good strategists. But if I had to pick just one, I would say, back to the AI example, we are, and many think, on the precipice of the greatest technical revolution since the internet. This is 1998, 1999 all over again. And while AI will not do everything today, just the sheer fact that so many CMOs do not feel as though they're leveraging it to its full power and potential today, to me speaks to the need to really be out in front of technology. Those who are using it cited not just more efficiency, but accelerated campaign development and even improvements to their creative testing. So I really do think, to bring back in the nitroglycerin example, if you can combine technology and the use of AI with great strategy, with great creativity, you really can be effective. You really can be, dynamite.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of great characteristics. I think I'm going to cheat and choose 2, though.
Okay.
So sorry, I'm not following the rules. I think first will be data interpreters. So this idea of data is super important. So we're just talking about,
right? Exactly.
How you input. So even within LinkedIn, on our skill sets, one of the top of the top 10 skill sets, I think 3 are related to data, right? It's data analysis, it's data analytics, it's all that. And so as a solid marketer and a B2B marketing organization future, it's understanding the data, understanding what your customer wants. It goes to the example you provided before. Like, how do we tie the creativity to the actual needs of our customers? And data is one big thing that tells us that. So if you can interpret it,
that bridge,
But data is only data. You have to figure out how to interpret that, right?
Exactly.
And that's where the human element comes in. And so data interpreter is going to be big. And the other one I would say is the collaboration, cross-functional collaboration. So being able to collaborate across all the various parts that you need to work with. There's so many different parts of an organization, at B2B organizations. Also, the B2B buying path, it's not one person, it's a group. It's a group of people, right? And so the buyer group that exists, being able to communicate in an effective manner, being able to communicate what your value prop is while pulling all the emotional strings that you talked about before, those are all important aspects. So I think taking that data interpreter, being able to communicate that out is going to be super important.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, it's always insightful to have a conversation like this, but more importantly, it makes me feel smart when I talk to smart people. So thank you for being.
You led us the way, so thank you.
So thank you for being very smart. So for more insights in the B2B marketing organization of the future, make sure you check out the newly launched B2B Marketing Benchmark Report. And I want to thank everybody for joining us online. Thank you.
Thank you, Vida.
All right.
Thank you.